really make sense of what's going on, they were already changing the lock, drilling and all sorts. So I started to panic. I said, you mean 10 minutes? He said, I didn't know what to do, so I just grabbed a couple of bags. And luckily, because I moved in not long ago, my mum gave me those nylon bags with red, blue, white stripes. You know those? Luckily, I had a few of those, so I chucked everything in there. All right. Luckily, I was a student, so I didn't have that much stuff. So I carried a few bags, and then 10 minutes later, I was out of this property. I was homeless for the first time, and I had no clue what I could do, and I didn't even know what was going on. So I remember, luckily, I had my mum's old car, which is a Toyota Corolla hatchback, so I chucked my things in there. So I drove back to uni. I saw Hayden and said, Hayden, we just got evicted. Hayden goes, what? So as it transpired, what happened was, the landlord of that property was actually a council tenant who was subletting illegally. And they were also drug addicts, which we didn't know about. And for months and months, the council had been trying to evict them with eviction notice, and they ignored every single one of them. So they pocketed our rent. And luckily, 2 weeks later, we could go back to the property to retrieve the rest of our stuff. But that was so uncool to be kicked out of a property like that. And luckily, I still remember the next thing I did was I went to see my older sister, Alice. She lived in Finchley, and we're from North London. East Finchley. So I crashed on her sofa for a few nights, and eventually I moved into an HMO. And that was HMO before anyone even talked about HMO. It was a property in East End Road. It was a house that was turned into 8 bedrooms. A couple of them were tiny, but I moved into 1 bedroom. It had a sink, it had a single bed, and it was tidy. We had a shared bathroom. And do you know what the best thing about that house was? You ask me what's the best thing? The other 7 tenants were all ladies. And I ended up going out with one of them for 2 years. And that was the best. So every negative experience turns out really positive. But that was great. I really enjoyed that. But then as I think back, that experience, I thought, what if that wasn't a student who doesn't really care, he just got a couple of bags? What if it was a family? Or maybe a single-parent family with 3 or 4 children, sleeping soundly at 7 a.m. under the comfort of the blanket provided by their mother. Everything's fine, touching the teddy bear, and then 2 big guys knock on the door. What's going to happen? It sounds horrible, you can see it, right? But we get contacted by people who are evicted, or just about to be evicted, all the time. And it's like the time sort of lost, that they didn't receive any letters, you didn't receive any phone calls from the banks, they had to wait until the very last moment before they would contact you. And I think that's in human nature, thinking that if there's a problem, sweep up the carpet, ignore it, long enough, it will go away. That's how people are, they bury their heads in the sand. But it never happened, right? And that's why that incident actually did remind me all the time that if people are getting into difficulty, you have to try to prevent it rather than prevention's better than cure. Because the moment someone changed the door lock, it's too late, yes or no? But sellers, sometimes they don't see that. They don't see that. Just because they're behind with the mortgage payment, maybe 3 months in arrears, they just think that, oh, wow, I'm not really in a hurry to sell. The sort of stuff you hear, I'm not really in a hurry to sell. But it's just to convince them otherwise. Because due consequences of not taking action, yes or no? All right? If you fail to convince them that, look, listen, you have to solve this problem, here's a potential solution, you really try to persuade them. And if they end up being evicted, I think you're doing them a disservice, yes or no? So it's not really about doing a hard sell, and selling is not selling your ideas, selling your opinion on a particular case. It's not a bad thing. Sometimes you have to influence their thinking. Right? I hope that you try to influence your children to do good, using whatever means, yes or no? I have a 14-year-old daughter. Oh, goodness. I have to try to influence her to do good. And sometimes it's to do with psychology as well. Right? You have to talk sweet to her. Sometimes you have to get a bit tougher with her. That's the way it is, really. But with sellers, it come across that you deal with a lot of emotional people, right? In some situations that have dire consequences. So it's not just about getting the highest offer. Yes, you know what, you can have the highest offer if you're not really in a hurry to sell. You can leave the property on the market as long as it takes. You might get the full price that you